We do have a Facebook group. We've got a CII study group. So when you do start your qualifications, join over there. So I run that group. There's about, oh gosh, there's hundreds of people from all over the world who are studying CII qualifications. And I do a technical topic live every Tuesday, and I do a CII live every Thursday. So you can sort of send in questions and I'll cover the questions in the live. So that could be you want some more information about how indemnity works, or you want to know how to book your exam. Those are the type of things that I cover on a weekly basis. And just a nice place to be with people who are also doing their exams, because I don't know, it might just be you who are doing it, no one else in your office. So you've not got that support network. So that's really what we've tried to create with the Facebook group, is that support network. And we've really achieved that. Everyone helps each other. It's a really nice place to be. So please check that out if you've not already. A little bit of background about me. As you can hear from my accent, I live in Manchester. I worked in insurance for about 17 years as a commercial lines broker, and then delved into the world of training and development. I used to be an apprenticeship coach. I don't know if anyone's doing an apprenticeship, where I would coach people through their insurance apprenticeships and also teach the CII qualifications in sort of classrooms. So I'm well versed with CII qualifications and insurance as a whole. I've been working in insurance for most of my life. So it's just a bit of background about me. So let's get into it. Okay. So this is effectively your journey to ACII. You might not want to go all the way through to ACII, that's fine. Some people are happy just getting the cert or just their dip. Some people want to go the whole hog, whatever you want to do. But we've made this infographic just to show how you get to that ACII qualification. And I'm sure that you've all found yourselves, I know that I found myself staring at the CII website, wondering what the hell it was all about, because there's loads of different modules, and they've all got different credit values, and which one do I need to do, which one don't I need to do? It can get quite confusing, but you're not alone. And that's why we create these type of webinars and the support materials that we do, just to try and make it less intimidating and easier to digest. So you'll probably have your own short-term and long-term goals that you want to achieve. And like I said, everybody's goals are very different, but we'll talk through this journey step by step and how you can achieve each level, and also about how you will be assessed at each level as well, because it does change throughout the journey. And also sort of any tips and tricks along the way as well. If you do have any questions throughout, please just shout out or pop them in the chat, whatever you're more comfortable doing. Or you can always stay behind at the end, and I can answer your questions if you want to talk one-on-one. That's fine as well. Okay, so firstly, the certificate. We're starting here, certificate in insurance. So this is the first level of the CII qualifications, and academically, this is the same level as A levels. Okay, so at this stage, you need to complete 3 modules. So you can see here, IF1 is your mandatory module. You have to do that, or LM1. Okay, I'll explain the difference between these in a second. And then you can pick 2 modules of your choice. Unless you're on an apprenticeship scheme, sometimes they will say which ones they want you to do. So either way, you'll do another 2. Now, IF1 is generally for people working outside of the London market. So if you're not working with Lloyd's in a syndicate, But if you are, then you might prefer to do LM1 because the L and M stand for London and Market. So this qualification is very London Market specific. And if you do LM1, I would recommend doing LM2 and LM3 because there's so much crossover and it will help you to do both of those. But if you're working outside of the London market, then IF1 will be the one that you start with usually. And then you'll pick whatever one you want to do after that. So you get 3 modules complete altogether. And this is then going to give you 40 credits. Okay. Now, the certificate in insurance, so IF1 and what other 2 you do, and how they're assessed is through a multiple choice examination. So you have to complete the exam after you've studied the module. So the CII will send you a book and you read the book and then you do an exam on the contents of that book. And that's really where our platform comes in, because we tend to try to bring that book to life a little bit and help you pass your exams. So that's how you're assessed in that. So when it comes to choosing which of these other ones you're going to do, this will really depend on your interests, your job, what route you want to take in your career as well, maybe. So there's things like claims, underwriting, risk management, broking, customer service, motor, health. You know, there's lots of different topics, and typically, you know, you'd want to choose one that you're either really interested in, because if you're really interested in a module, a topic, then that's going to help you pass it, or it's part of your job. So I don't know, I'm a broker, so I'm going to do insurance broking, and that'll help you because the stuff that you're reading, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I do in my job, it makes sense. So that's how I would go about choosing which module to do, because that's a question we get asked quite a lot, like, well, which module should I do? And the answer is, I don't know, because I don't know what you do. So it's a case of looking through them and checking and seeing which one is the best fit for you, really. I did a risk management module. I don't work in risk management, I've never have, but I found it really interesting, and that helped me with my studying, because obviously if I find it interesting, I want to do it. So that's always a good sort of route to take as well. Okay, when you first sign up to your IF1 or your LM1, whichever one you're doing, that book will come through your letterbox with a big FUD, because it's a big book. There's a lot of information in there, there's a lot of content to learn, and you might feel quite overwhelmed with it at first because there's so much stuff in there for you to learn, and you might have a period of thinking, how am I going to do this? Now, it will get easier after this module, after that first one. The books get smaller until you get to diploma level, but certainly at certificate level, the books get thinner, less content. The exams get shorter as well after that first module. So if it makes you feel better, things do get better after that first one. And then remember, the modules that you do after that, IF1 or LM1, you know, they're going to be a little bit more aligned to either your role or your interests, making it easier again. Now, IF1 is the fundamentals of insurance. It's insurance, legal and regulatory. So it tells you everything, and it's the basis for all of the CII modules. So when working at a diploma level, which is the next step up, or an advanced diploma level, you probably will find yourself coming back to the IF1 and referring to that book, because it is just the basis for everything that we're using moving forward, which is why there's so much stuff in there, which is why it's so important. So in terms of timelines, timelines is good to point out. I mean, we've got here 12 to 24 months for your certificate. Everybody's different. My boss, she did her whole ACII, so this whole journey, in 12 months. So it depends how much time you've got to commit to it, and you know how quickly you want to do it. But we typically say, you know, 6 months is a pretty good time frame for one of these modules. It's easily achievable in that time. I've seen people do it quicker, and I've seen people do it over 12 months as well. But sometimes that can slow you down a little bit more if you take quite a long time to get through it. But 6 months per module is pretty good timing. Of course, if you're on a graduate program or an apprenticeship program, you might have specific timelines that you need to adhere to. So please do bear that in mind. I know that I'm saying here that 6 months is a good time or whatever, but these timelines might be a little bit different if you're on one of those programs. So just bear that in mind, really. Now, obviously, studying with a full-time job, with things that you might have going on in your life, with children, it's not easy. I studied my diploma with a 2-year-old, which was interesting, to say the least. It's not easy, but I think that if you put your mind to it, you know, anything's achievable. And any help that you can get as well with, you know, calling on your colleagues that you work with who might have done it before, or things like our revision platform, which might help you speed up the process and enhance your learning as well. So you can see here, once you've completed your certificate, we then move on to the diploma level here. So you'll see that it works on a credits basis, and each module that you do, you're going to get awarded a number of credits. And like I mentioned before, there are some modules that are mandatory, that you have to complete regardless. You have to complete them to get your qualification. So it's worth noting, actually, while we're on credits, that there are some prior qualifications that you may have that can be converted into credits. So, for example, if you have a degree in business, economics, law, you can convert those into credits or exemptions. It's worth discussing that with the CII before you start your studies, to see if you can get any credits. So sometimes they'll say to you, right, you've got a law degree, we'll exempt you from any law modules. Or they might say, we'll give you some credits unassigned and you can just use those credits however you want. Which, what that means is that you can finish your qualification quicker, because you probably don't have to do as many modules, because you've got some extra credits to put towards these amounts that you need from your previous qualifications. So definitely check that out as well. So with the diploma in insurance, there is a little bit of a step up from here to here, I feel. We're going from one assessment method to 2 assessment methods. So at certificate level, remember, we were just doing multiple choice exams. Whereas now we have an extra assessment method, which is coursework assignments. Okay, so can you see here that each of these begins with an M? These modules for diploma begin with an M, and what the M stands for is just mixed. It's a mixed assessment, so you'll be assessed through a mixture of multiple choice examination and coursework. So depending on what module you do, your coursework is going to range from 8,000 words to 12,000 words per module. Okay, Insurance law is a bit more. Just got a question about credits. With regards to the credits, can you apply them to any, or would it have to be at the cert level? So the CII will tell you what you can do with your credits, because it all depends on what they're being converted from. So they will say to you, right, you can use these credits towards diploma level. They're unspecified, so you can use them anywhere. And they might say to you, these credits you can use as an exemption for insurance law. And they'll be very specific with you as to where you can use them. But they do that on a case-by-case basis, Jenna. No worries. So with the mandatory modules at Diploma, we've got MO5 and M92. So MO5 is insurance law. M92 is insurance, business and finance. You can get exemptions for either of these if you've got a accountancy, economics degree or a law degree. MO5 has got the worst reputation in the CII. Everyone always goes on about how terrible it is. It's not that bad. It's got a bad rep, but it really isn't that bad. It's a big old book. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as scary as people say it is. So don't let it put you off. And you know, insurance law sometimes it's not the most interesting of topics, but if you look at it like a book of stories, because it's all about case laws, helps you digest that a little bit more. So what you'll have to do here is you'll do an exam, and then you get given 10 questions from the CII, and you write for insurance law, you write a 10 to 12,000 word essay answering those questions that the CII give you. So it's quite straightforward, the coursework element. You're not going off nothing. They give you questions to answer, and you just have to format that like a coursework assignment. So you do that for each of the modules. Now, what we're looking at really with Diploma, when you go from that certificate level, it's very much, right, I have to remember everything that's in the book so I can answer it right in the exam. Whereas when you move to diploma level, it's more about putting your understanding into context. Can you explain these concepts in your own words? So the coursework is really allowing you to demonstrate a practical understanding of that book that they've given you. You know, put it into your own words, explain your understanding of it. How would you apply that concept to lots of different scenarios? The exam is exactly the same as certificate level. We're still looking at multiple choice. It's the same structure and setup. It's just the coursework where they're really now looking for sort of your perspective on those topics. Yeah, so it's just a little bit different. With your diploma, the best way to revise, I found, is by doing your coursework. So you have to work through that book chapter by chapter to answer those questions in the coursework. So by the time you finish the coursework, you've read that book probably twice. You've gone through it bit by bit in lots of detail. And then you think, well, I can do an exam on this book now because I've read it twice. You know, I've been staring at it for 6 months, so I can definitely do my exam. So we always encourage people to do their coursework first and then sit their exam when they submit their coursework, because you'll be in such a good position for your exam after that coursework piece. If you do get to your diploma, we have a separate webinar where we just focus solely on coursework and how to do that, how to do referencing, how to structure your answers and how to approach them. So when you do get to that, look out for that webinar because that will really help. Okay. So when we get to this level, this is where you're thinking, am I going to carry on to my ACII? I know that's really what I'm thinking about at this level. Am I going to go on to complete that, or am I just going to stay here? So if you want to stay just at diploma level, you'll do your MO5, your M92, and then a couple of extra modules. Again, you might want to align those to your job, your interests, topics that you might want to move into in your career. You have the same freedom as you did at certificate level, unless you're on a graduate or an apprenticeship scheme, of course. And then you'll just get your credits. And once you've got up to that 120, you gain your diploma. And then, at a later date, a couple of years later, you might decide to pick up your ACII. But you can move on to your ACII at this point if you know that that's the route that you want to take. So I'll just show you an example of this, which you might find useful. So on our website, we have, let me get rid of all of this annotation. There we go. We've got a CII workbook, and this is how you can work out your credits. So this is free to anyone. You just go on our website and click CII support and scroll down, and it's just at the bottom. Okay. So say you've done IF1, IF2, IF3, and it tells you, yep, you've got enough credits, your certificate is complete. Okay. Now I need to do MO5 because it's mandatory. I need to do M92 because it's mandatory. So I've done the mandatory modules for diploma, but actually I want to achieve my ACII. So I'm actually going to go and start my ACII at this point. So I'm going to do a mandatory module. So broking. Mandatory modules here are either broking, underwriting, or claims. So you pick which is the best fit for you. You can do them all if you want to, but you just pick the best fit. So I've picked broking. Can you see now I've actually achieved my diploma? So I actually only needed to do 2 from here and then picked up 1 from the ACII in order to get that diploma. So that's a good way to do it if you know you want to go on to that ACII. Now, when you get to the ACII level, again, we're stepping it up a notch. Okay, so now let's just talk a bit about here. We are really stepping up a notch here. It's worth bearing in mind that if you do move on to ACII, you don't do any more exams. Okay, sometimes this is good for people. Some people hate exams and they're like, I really like writing coursework. Some people are the opposite. They're like, I don't like coursework, but I love exams. So whatever's best fit for you. But bear in mind, if you do go on to ACII, it's all coursework, purely coursework. Every module is 3 pieces of coursework. Now, they're a lot shorter than the diploma. So remember, at diploma, we were looking at between 8,000 and 12,000 words. Whereas with the ACII, we're looking at 3 pieces of coursework. They're about 3,000 words each, about one topic. So it's a little bit different. But if that's your bag, if that's your cup of tea, it could work out quite well for you. At this level, you do still get a book. So they'll send you a book, but it's not like the diploma or the certificate where all your answers will be in the book. At the ACII level, they're really wanting you to test your knowledge rather than your memory. It's very much an opportunity to show your knowledge and experience, voice your opinions, put across your thoughts, your suggestions. And at ACII level, you get a lot more freedom, and it gives you the opportunity to really learn more about your business. So if you do an ACII module, you might find yourself going around the office, asking questions to people in different areas, in different jobs and functions, because you want to find out how what's in the book works in your business. Because typically what the CII want you to do in your ACII coursework is to talk about the business that you work for. This is how we do it. This is what I think about it. This is how I think we could improve it. For example, a lot of people do find this really enjoyable, more so than answering structured questions, because you do have a lot more freedom in sort of how you approach your answers. So that's how the ACII works. Now, if you leave it here and then come back later on, you've got a total of 5 modules, and then your compulsory units as well to achieve ACII. So it's a pretty long slog. But, you know, if you do it this way, just get this screen back up again. If you do it this way, it might be a little bit easier because you've done less at diploma level. You might need to do more here. So let's have a look. If we do broken, what else do I want to do? Claims, do economics and business. See, I've still not got it. See, it took me quite a while to get there, didn't it? So it's quite a few modules, but if you don't like exams, it's probably a good way for you to achieve your ACII. Just do 2 modules at diploma with your exams and then sack them off and go over to the coursework. I don't know which I prefer, to be honest. I don't know. I don't mind coursework because it gives you can sort of sit at home and mull over it a little bit more and check your work, and you're not under sort of time constraints like you are with exams. But then again, your exam's just out the way and done, isn't it, pretty quickly? There's no procrastination in a 2-hour exam. Got to get it done and get out of there. So there's pros and cons to it all, really. Okay, let me just get rid of this. So that's sort of how your journey can work. If you've got any questions about that, please pop them in, or we can have a chat through it later. So when it comes to revision, I get asked this all the time. How do I revise? So it could be that you've been out of education for a really long time. You know, I left school I left uni 2005. It's a very long time ago. I'd all but forgotten how to study and how to retain that information. And also our learning styles change as we get older. And the learning styles that we see now are very different. You know, how my kids learn in school is totally different to how I learned in school. And it all depends on you and what works for you. And sometimes you need to try lots of different things to figure out what is going to work for you. Some people read a book and they can just remember it. I hate those people. Or people have to read a book, write it down, read it, write it, repetitive. And that's how I learn. I have to read something and then write it in my own words and just keep doing that over and over for it to sink in, because my memory is terrible. So it just depends. So it could be a very new experience for quite a few of you, and that's okay. But we've just got a few ideas on sort of how we can help with revision. So first of all, that textbook that you have, this is going to be your Bible for your exam. Remember, you know, at certificate and diploma level, you are going to be tested on the contents of that book. So it's really important that you read it at least once. Skimming is not good enough. I've seen questions from the CII where they just pick out, you know, a sentence from the book, and I'm like, I didn't even read that. I just skimmed over that bit, but I learnt my lesson. The questions are going to be very specific to the content in that book. So it doesn't matter if you've worked in insurance broking for 20 years. I know all about insurance broking. I can go and do an insurance broking exam. They're going to ask you things that are in that book. And sometimes it might not even relate to what you do in insurance broking. It might not be exactly what you do in the business, but that's how it is in the book. So that's why it's really important to always read it. Can't say that enough, really. Next, I mentioned this a second ago about creating your revision notes. So I like to read things and write it out in my own words, or record myself talking about it. Sounds a bit weird. It works for me. So putting it in your own words can really help sort of embed that knowledge and help you develop a deeper understanding of the topic. Putting it into a digestible format, write a list of all the main things that you need to know about that chapter or about that section that you're reading. Use color coding. That book's yours when you get it, by the way. You don't have to send it back. So get your highlighters out, highlight everything that you want in the book, make it more interesting to look at. Mind maps can be really useful as well. So, I don't know, you might want to do indemnity and then talk about all the different ways that you can be indemnified. So you could do that as well. Next, revision cards. My crosses are very questionable. So with revision cards, we do have a giveaway on our revision cards at the moment. We're charging just £3 postage for all our revision cards. So check those out. They're on the website, just at the top on the banner. You can get those. So we create our own revision cards. So you can do your own if you want. I used to make my own before I found our revision cards. So it's this is a really good way for you to learn, because you've got to write the revision cards as well. So you have to think of a question or the thing that you want to learn what it means, and then find the answer and put it on the back of the card. So that exercise within itself is a learning experience. And then your revision cards are going to help you narrow down what you don't know as well. So when you're going through the revision cards, I know that one, put that one to one side. I don't know that one, that goes in the revision pile for me to come back to. So you're splitting out, this is what I do know, this is what I don't know, and that's very important to do. So revision cards are really useful. Okay, questions. Everyone loves practice questions. On our courses, I spend a lot of time writing questions for our courses. I'm just going through adding hundreds of questions to all of our CII modules, so that they're new and they're fresh. The CII will give you a mock exam paper. So you'll get 100 questions there, depending on what exam you're doing. You've got also access to Revision Mate via the CII. This is a platform where you've got access to lots of tests. You can actually get it as a mobile app, which is really useful as well. So you can just test yourself on the go. That's what I used to do. If you're on the bus or the train or the tube or whatever you do, you can just get on your phone and do a quick test. But I'll warn you, the question bank's not very big. Once you've done the test twice, you start to remember the answers. That's not the best for learning, really. You could try writing your own questions, and that's something that I used to like to do. I'd write my own questions and get somebody else to ask them to me. So that's also a good way of learning, is finding the content to write the questions about as well. So that's quite useful. And then in your book as well, at the end of each chapter, you've got some self-testing questions. So that's another 100 questions just in the book. Okay. Checklists. So again, this is really going to tell you what you know and what you don't know. This is good to do maybe the day before the exam. What I like to do is something called an index test. So at the back of every book, there's an index, and it lists alphabetically all of the topics in the book. And I just go through every single one. And if I can't explain it simply, then I don't know it. And I've highlighted it to go back to. That's something good to do maybe the day before your exam, or in the few days before, just so you know you've covered all the bases. It's a good thing to do. And then we go back to the questions again. So you've narrowed down what you don't know. And now you want to know what you really don't know, you know. And this is what you're doing just before your exams, really. You've narrowed down, right, this is my mock paper. I got 20 questions wrong. You take away those 20 questions, this is what you don't know. How many things, out of these 20 questions do I not know now? I don't know 10. Okay, you've got 10. And you just keep going down like that until you're happy with everything. Okay, and just keep narrowing it down. Don't keep doing a full mock, 100 question mock all the time. Just keep narrowing it down until you're happy with where you are. Okay. Then you've got your revision cards again. Get your revision cards back out. Go through those. This area here, you're looking at like the day before, the day of your exam here. This is the beginning. This is the end. So get your revision cards back out. I sit there in the waiting room at the exam centre with my revision cards. People looking at me like, where did she get those from? And then you can do some luggage stuffing. So luggage stuffing. Luggage stuffing is where you pack in all of those little bits that you've really struggled to remember. You'll find there's always a couple of niggly bits where you're like, why can't I just remember this? Why won't it sink in? That's what you want to luggage stuff. So don't worry about it now. Just worry about that on the day or the day before. So what I tend to do with those is when I'm in that waiting room, I'll look at those things that I can't remember. So let's just say, I don't know, it's a case law. I'll read about it. So be like, right, wagon mound, case law, this is what it means. Okay, I remember it. And as soon as I get in to my exam, you've got a piece of scrap paper. I write on that piece of paper straight away what it is that I'm trying to remember, because I've just come into the room. So hopefully I can remember it within, I don't know, 60 seconds. And I write on that piece of paper straight away, wagon mound case, this is what it means. So then I know that if it comes up in the exam, I've got it written down. It might not, but it might do. So that's luggage stuffing. So that's right before you go into your exam. You're stuffing in what you need to know. Those niggly bits that you just can't remember. And you'll always have a couple of those things, and that's okay. Okay. So with your CII exams, you can do this one of two ways. So you heard me talking about when I'm sat in the waiting room. This is old school. I'm very old school. I like going to an exam centre in person and sitting in a room with lots of other people doing exams. It's just how I like to do it. I've not done a remote exam myself, but we do have two options now because of COVID. So during lockdown, exams stopped for about 3 months, and then they started again with this new technology where we could do it in our own homes. And they've kept that because it's very popular. Not everyone can get to an exam centre, and we found that we can do it perfectly well at home. Now, there's a few things to bear in mind when you're thinking about which route to go down. Now, my house is definitely not suitable for a remote exam. I've got children and animals and noisy bin men and neighbours. So it's probably not the best place. I'm always getting disturbed. So I wouldn't trust it. So what you have to have is a very quiet place where you're not going to get any distractions. You have to have clear walls as well. And I've got stuff on all the walls here. And I couldn't take it all down because my other walls are covered in pictures and stuff. So you have to have all clear walls, clear desk, nothing on your desk at all. And you have to show them around the room with a mirror. So you have to show them behind your laptop with a mirror so they can see it. Because you get assigned your own invigilator. You can do IF1 remote, yes. You can do any of your exams remotely. So you get assigned your own invigilator who will sit on the exam with you, which always made me feel a bit weird. But apparently you just forget they're there. That's what people tell me. And they sit on the exam with you, and you screen share with them so they can see that you're not like, I don't know, going on the CII website, looking up the answers. and they're there if you need any help, you know, if you're having system problems or anything like that as well. Now with in-person exams, you literally just turn up and they log you on a computer and you go, that's it. Whereas when you do it at home, there's lots of system checks that you need to do. You need to do a familiarization test to make sure that your technology is compatible with the CII technology. You can't use a work laptop because of firewalls and VPNs. So there are a few niggly restrictions that might compromise you if you're thinking of doing a remote exam. So definitely look up the familiarization test CII in Google, and that'll come up with all the information that you need to know. There are exam centres all over the country. They're quite easy to find, and typically with exams there's a lot of availability. You don't have to wait for a certain time of year to do your exam either. You can book it at any time. With the remote exams, they're even more accessible because there's so many slots. So you can do the exam pretty much anytime. I think you can do the remote ones at the weekend as well, which is pretty cool. So how do I book my exam? That's another question that I get asked quite a lot. When you log into the CII website, you just click on My CII and it will be there clear as day. You have an exam voucher. Click on the exam voucher and redeem exam voucher, and it will then take you to the PSI booking platform. So that this is where you get, do you want to go to a test centre, so that's face-to-face, or do you want to do a remote online exam? And that's where you choose that. And then when you select continue, it will then take you through to a section where you put your postcode in if you're going face-to-face, and it will find the nearest exam centre. And you choose the centre, choose the time and go. If you're doing it from home, you just have to select the time and the date and you book it through there. So it is up to you when you book your exam. So the power is in your hands, unless you've been told otherwise by your company or apprenticeship provider, of course. And that leads me on really to booking it. Now, the first thing I would urge you to do is book that exam. You get an 18-month enrolment period on your module. Just book it. You don't want to, if you leave it 18 months, you're just going to procrastinate. So I would always put a date on it. You know, give yourself a couple of months or however long you think you need to study that book and get in a good position, and then book your exam. And you've got a date to work towards. So I know that I've got to get it all done by this date. Keeps you focused, and it gives you a deadline that you're working towards. And people always say, you know, how long should I give myself to study the book? And I've said this before, that it can vary. A couple of months, maybe. If you're on our revision app, it could be a little bit quicker. But that depends on your learning style and obviously what you're doing in your own lives. We all have things that we have going on, and sometimes it's not that simple. But giving yourself that deadline will really help you. If you do have a course with us, or if you take advantage of the free access for the weekend, make sure you click the save the date, because we always want to know when you're doing your exams, and we'll send you some motivational emails. Can you change the date of the exam after booking? You can. You have to give them good notice though. I think you have to do it at least 2 days before. Don't quote me on that, Charlie. I want to get in trouble. But I think you can, but you do have to give some sort of notice. And if you don't, then you forfeit it. But you can change it if you want to. Yeah. But just double check those. I mentioned this before, just for anyone that's come in a bit later. If you are studying a CII module right this second, or you know which one you're going to be doing, please put your name and your email address and the module in the chat, and I'll give you free access to our online course for that module for the weekend. So pop that in. I'll stick around if anyone's got any questions, but if not, I hope that that has been useful for you, and I hope that I'll see you again on one of our courses. Thank you.